I've prepared just a few slides to go through some concepts. Again, hopefully I'm not too repetitive with Brian's presentation. But I think it's important because when you see the code, I can come back to the concepts and we try to hopefully join the dots. Again, this is a very, very basic RAG implementation. Okay, it's just to visualize in the code how the concepts are usually implemented. So for those of you that already read my article about customizing and fine-tuning the models, RAG is one of those approaches. And what we usually use that for is to get a content that you have in your organization or whatever it is, and try to contextualize the summary that the LLMs usually produce. Of course, it's not that simple. And as you can see here, we usually have a step to ingest the data. I will go a little bit more details about these steps, but just to give an overview, we usually ingest the content. It can be like a structure, unstructured, or semi-structured data into a vector DB, and can be like any other DB, but usually a vector DB, it's easier for semantic search. It basically translates the content into vectors by the semantic values. We use like a AI model for that. I will explain a bit better later. So once you have that vector DB, any questions that come from the user, query that vector DB. We usually use a framework to make our life easier, to simplify the process. So today I'm going to use a framework called LangChain. It basically orchestrates all these steps and has some libraries that can abstract the complexity for doing those tasks. So one of the tasks is to query the vector database and get the most relevant content from there. And then once you have that content, you can do some adjustments, some more customizations via prompt engineering, and you send that prompt with the contextual data to a LLM, being that a GPT model or a Llama, whatever you want to use. And then the response comes then from the model to the user. Okay, that's at the very high level, that's what happens. So we are going to do that in 2 steps. The first one, as I said, the first one is the ingestion. So in our example, we are going to get some PDFs, well, just one PDF to be fair, so it makes that the ingestion quicker. And that's our custom content. I've actually kind of wrote a book. I asked ChatGPT to write me a book about something that doesn't exist on the internet. So we are going to do like a comparison when I ask ChatGPT about that, and when I ask our bot about that. You can see that ChatGPT doesn't know about it, and our bot will know about it because we are using our own custom content for that. In order to translate that content into vectors, into a vector database, we use a specific kind of model that we call embedding models. It basically has some logic to find the semantic value for a specific piece of text or for a word or something like that. In this case, I'm giving a very simple example of a vector database here. I'm doing a 3D representation. Usually vector databases, in practice, we use like a multi-dimensional, but for visualization purpose, I'm using a 3-dimensional one here, where after the embedding, it will find a specific value, for example, for a car, for a boat, and then it will, according to the semantic proximity, it will try to plot very close to each other in the database. So for example, when you query something like a kitten on this database, it will get a cat and probably a tiger as well, because they're quite close. And so that's at the very high level, that's how it works. I will give some more examples in the later. So again, as I said, this is just an example of the semantic representation within a vector database. Yeah, DB is a database, and that's basically how it's done. Usually, for example, when you have a piece of text, this is basically how it's done, right? So you have like, for example, PDF with some text. Oops, there's someone trying to come in, but not working. Yeah. I have an example. Doing the embeddings, what we're going to do is to get like a text, like our PDF document, and break into smaller pieces of texts. And we usually call that chunks, right? So when you're going to do the code, and you see that that's actually the terminology that they use. The chunks of text, or chunks of whatever you want. In this case, we're using for text. And then there's another concept that in order to have a semantic value, sometimes the piece of text is not long enough for you to have that semantic value. So having the size of the chunk right is one of the challenges when you do the ingestion. And then to help with the semantic values as well, we use the concept overlap as well. So as you can see here, part of the first sentence may be in the next part of the chunk as well, just to give some more context to the chunk. Once you have that, then we're using the embedding model to translate that into the vectors themselves. So you usually have like a multi-dimensional database with a lot of numbers for your vector, and that will give you the semantic value within the database. When you do the query, it's going to do exactly the same thing. You get that question that you have. We use the same embedding model to find the value, and you plot that as a picture here, close to the other values that have closer semantic value as well. And that's how it does the search. So let's do some coding and hopefully clarify a bit more from the technical perspective how it works. I've already prepared a few things here. So the basic stuff. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with Python, but it doesn't matter too much. Okay, we're going to explain the logic. There are a few libraries that I'm going to use here to implement. This first one is regarding the vector database. So for this example, I'm going to use the FAS database. It's a vector database from Meta. I'm going to use a library to read the PDF. And then I'm going to use some LangChain, which is the framework to orchestrate and give some helpers as well to execute that pipeline. The last one is a Python library for user interface. So it's just helping me to. I already have the code ready. So at the end, I will get like a proper chatbot on the browser where you can query and see if everything is working. I'm also going to use a local LLM. So I'm not going to use OpenAI or anything else. This is, I think it's quite relevant for people that have been asking about, how you keep your data private. I don't want to use any vendor, and I want to send my private data to vendors because I have requirements from compliance perspective, security, whatever it is. I already have, this is my lab machine at home. I have an application called Ollama running there. For those of you that don't know what it is basically an application that you can use to download models from the internet and run that in your machine. Okay, so then I'm serving those models inside this machine. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to create a file for the ingestion. And then I'm going to include some libraries that I need here to manipulate some file system stuff. I'm also going to set some parameters for this, some flags for this command line. So, and something to manipulate as well the files if I want to delete the database or something like that. Then I'm going to use some stuff from LangChain as well, from the framework. And by the way, you can see that it is completing. It's trying to guess what I want to do, and what is doing that is the Amazon queue. It's the same as a Copilot, so it's all trying to auto-complete my my code as well. It's very helpful. So the first thing I want to do is the document loader, and it's guessing that I'm going to load the PDF, but I want actually to do a full folder. And that's correct as well. So I'm going to now have a helper to split the code to produce the chunks out of my PDF. So that one's correct as well. Let's see what else. And then I am also using an embedding model. So I have a helper here to call the embedding LLM model to do the translation of the text into vectors. But in this case, I'm not going to use the OpenAI. I'm going to use my local Ollama. And then I need my vector database as well, which is it is suggesting Chroma, but we are using FAS. So far, so good. Another thing that I already done, yeah, it's also it's actually doing all the code for me, but let's skip that for now. The other thing that I've done here, there are a few variables that I'm going to share across my code. So I've set, there's a package on Python for loading these environment variables. So I'm setting the PDF path. So I'm using a folder called PDF here. So I can create this folder where I'm going to put my PDF. Then I'm going to use two models. Right. So when you look here, where is it? At this slide, you can see that I should put here actually the embedding model that's going to translate the content to VectorDB and the queries as well. So that's the embedding model. And I also have like a chat model where I'm going to send my prompt and my contextual data for producing my answers. So these are the two models. I download this model from Hugging Face, which is a kind of a GitHub for LLMs. And then I've got this one from the Ollama repository itself. So then what I'm going to do is to load those environment variables. So if I put what's the name again? .env. And then okay. And then the first thing I'm going to do is to load the environment variables. And I want to override whatever I have on that specific. So I make sure that every time that I load it, it's getting the environment variables that are actually loaded from my env file. Then the first one that I need is my PDF folder. And it will hopefully, I don't have one suggesting my code itself. Then I want a path to save my DB file as well. the embedding models. Okay. So the first I will define a function to load the document. Actually, that's exactly what I need. I'll just see, yeah, the loader is returning. So this will go to that specific PDF folder and we will load the PDF. And it's suggesting another function to split the documents. Actually, I'm going to include that. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to create something to add to the vector database. And then I have some documents that I want to. I think the rest should be fine. So first thing I'm going to do is to split the text. And then here, for example, on this, this function here is basically splitting the text into smaller chunks. And then this is where you define the chunk size and how much it's going to overlap. Okay, I think this should be fine for our test. I think 1,000 characters gives like a reasonable size of a sentence to have a semantic value, and an overlap of 100 characters of each one should be fine as well. This is something that I usually have to test and see how much the solution is hallucinating, so not giving the right answer. Okay, so that's the text splitter. And then I have this, I'll call that chunks for us to be a bit more online with the terminology. And we split the document that I'm receiving, that's fine. I'm going to load the embedding model from Olema itself. And then I have the vector to be the chunks and embed. That's correct. That's fine. Then I'm also going to define a function if I want, for example, to clean my database and start again. So I'm just going to, yeah, exactly, something like that. That should be enough to delete. And the main method, which is basically define the argument that I can use in the command line. So if I give the flag clean, it will call the clean database. It will delete my database. And then otherwise it's going to load and the documents and add that to the vector database. So I'm just going to put some prints here as well, so we can do the execution. We know where it is, and that should be okay. Just one last. So you see, it's basically 42 lines of code, and we have like an ingestion method here. Of course, that's because we're using the LangChain framework. Yes, Talu.
Yeah. Quick question. So I'm assuming there are other libraries other than LangChain, right, for LLM?
Yes.
Is there any particular reason you chose LangChain, or?
Good question. That's the first one that I've heard about, and I think that it's the most used one so far. Not sure if there's anything else that is as mature as LangChain, but again, this is a complete new area, so people are coming with new frameworks all the time. But I found it very easy to use, and the community around is open source, and the community around that's quite big. So I've been using that for the past 8 months, and it's been good so far. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, you
but
answered my question. I kind of thought it was something gonna be
Mhm.
something like that anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, something I need to keep an eye on, because all the time people come with new frameworks, maybe better frameworks. But anyway, so let's see if it works. That's for the ingestion perspective. Call that now. Ingest. Let's save the file. So let's see. Didn't. It never works the first time. So let's see what happened here. That's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that's the embedding model. What am I doing wrong here? Am I missing anything? Let me just double check. That here, just a split. Load the PDF. Just see if I put the right one, right name. Mm. Yeah. If not June. Double check. We have that DB back. Oh yeah, and we don't have the PDF. That's not going to help as well. Okay, this is a book that I've asked. I don't know if it's ChatGPT or Gemini to create. So it created like a 10-page book here. A creature from Amazon where there's some history about it. So if we ask, for example, ChatGPT about it, a new one, and they give the name as Roxodon, something that they couldn't find. If you say that it could refer to something, but it doesn't know what it is. Or again, from the game story, so it doesn't know what it is. That's why I've created this book, and then when we ask about it, it should say it should give the answers about the book, but not from the internet. Let me see if it works now. Yeah, it's reading now. Looks good. Cool. Okay, so now here we have the database created with all the data that we want to use for querying. All right, so now, because I'm going to use a front end to query, I'm going to create a backend function here. So I can just create a package file here. And this one, it's going to be responsible for the logic of querying the database, doing some prompt engineering, and then asking the chat model, sending all the information to the chat model for a good summarization on the way back for the response. Again, I'm going to use my environment variables. So I need the .env. I'm going to use the LangChain again, but there's something called hub inside the LangChain, which is basically a lot of libraries that you can use to do some tasks, specific tasks. So I'm going to use some of them for my prompt engineering. That's why I'm loading the hub itself. And then I'm going to load something for dealing with the documents that I retrieve, something to combine the documents. There is a task called stuff documents, which is basically going to stuff in all the documents that I'm retrieving. And then that's correct. I'm going to create like a chain as well, a retrieval chain. So that's responsible for orchestrating these steps. I need something for the vector database again. Chain unit as well. Face. And then what else I need? Okay, there is something else that I'm going to implement here, which is a concept of a memory for my bot. So, for example, when you open like a thread on ChatGPT, for example, every consequent question, you have your first question, but all the following questions, they will remember the history. So there is something on LangChain that can help with that as well. So then I will give an example when I'm testing the bot as well. So there's a LangChain. It's part of the chain as well. It's the history aware. Yeah, it's the one. And that's the one that is going to create the history awareness. What else? I need something to interact with the Ollama application to query the models. So I need the LangChain. There's a package for that called LangChain Ollama. I want the chat Ollama to send my prompt and context, and the embeddings as well to translate my query to the database and vice versa. And I think that's it. And I load my environment variables. So actually this is from .env. I keep forgetting. Show it again. And then again, I will need my my variables. I have like all of them defined here. So I'm just going to copy and paste to save some time. It's pretty much the same we've done with the ingestion. I'm just using these variables again because on these different parts of the code. And then I'm going to create a function to run the chain itself. And I will receive a query, which is basically the question from the user. And that's going to be a string. And then, nice. I think that's fine. Actually, I need some special type in here for the the history. So I'm just going to load some. That's exactly what I need. So I'm going to do the chat history here. I think it generates the right. I think that's correct. I'm really impressed actually with the Amazon Q. Most of the time, 90% of the time, it suggests the right thing. You can see that it basically done my whole code here. I'm just going to do a quick check here to see if it's fine. So I have the embedding models. I'm going to call it chat to be a bit more consistent. The embeddings, I can actually call it straight there. Don't need here. And the local path, embedding model. Okay, yeah. Actually, I'm going to remove this part here because I'm going to do some changes. I'm going to work a little bit on a way that I am treating the data, treating the information from the context itself, and the way that I call and I prepare that prompt to call the LLM model, the chat model. There are some helps. One of the things that I want to do is to make sure that my question to the chat model says take only into consideration the contextual data that I'm sending to you and nothing else. And that's basically how you can leverage something that you have inside your company, for example, your knowledge base or intellectual property, and you don't want to know about what's coming from the internet. Because if you ask a generic question to ChatGPT, for example, it can get anything, things from Wikipedia, from whatever. And I say, don't bother about the external world. I want you to just summarize this context that I'm sending to you, nothing else. So there's a helper for that on LangChain. That's why I think LangChain is quite valuable. So during my question and answer, I want that to be the prompt to be based solely on the context. And for that, I'm going to use something called Retrieval question and answer chat prompt. Exactly. And it already knows which one to call. So if we get this specific helper here and we put that on our browser, you can see that it's basically a piece of code that it has into the hub that's going to get just to tell the ChatGPT so that what it's doing inside the prompt, it be saying answer any questions basically based solely on this context below. And then the context is something we're going to send from the vector database. That's what it does, right? And then what else? And then there is also some functions that help us to format data when you're going to present that back to the user. So just to rephrase the prompt, in this case, with the history, because I want the history to be part of the prompt as well. And so there's Let's see. That's exactly the one. Again, if we look at that and go to the LangChain documentation from the hub. Oops, I have it up here. It's not this one. So I think I got the wrong one because it's supposed to have this one here from my notes. That's not the right one. This is the one. Yep. Oh, it's basically including the chat history with the question. The input is the question that's coming from the user. Okay, so that's again abstracting all this complexity from us. Just need to call that, and that's what it's going to do. Someone else is joining. Okay, so that's not the right one. So this is the right one. Almost good. All right, so now I'm just going to put some logic here for the history awareness. So you need to have a history aware retriever. Oops. And that's not the right code. So let me call it history aware retriever.
Rodrigo, so the Amazon Q is a plugin for Visual Studio?
Yes, you can just go here on extensions and put Amazon Q here. Oops. Yeah, is have space
Okay.
Q. That's why. And you go there and just need to install. You need, you also it will ask you to register as well. So, but it's free.
Okay.
There's a developer license as well, but I think for personal use it's free.
Awesome.
Just to check here, so the LLMs finds the chat LLM that I'm going to use, the vector GBS retriever, and then the rephrase prompt as the prompt that I'm going to use. Fine, that's for the history. Okay. And then now, let's see, I need to have the retrieval chain, which is fine, and is considering the history itself. And it will, I'm just be more specific here. Online. Yeah. Then use this create stuff document to basically get all my chat and the question and answer chat prompt, and we'll put that together for my query to the LLM. And then hopefully the last thing we have to do is actually to invoke the chain. Yeah, I think the code is correct. And there's not a response. I can say that this is what I'm returning. I keep having the wrong. It's not good. Okay, so this is basically the backend. Again, very, very simple. Just 40 lines of code with the logic to receive a query, a question from the user, consider any chat history that I have in my bot, and then do some prompt engineering here to consider only the context of the vector database, consider the history of the chat, and then execute the chain, execute the pipeline of doing those steps of querying and asking the chat model as well to summarize the content coming back from the contextual data. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to insert a piece of code here. I'm not going through that code because this has nothing to do with this exercise, but it's just adding a nice user interface for us to query. It can be a bit more visual. For that, I'm just going to copy and paste the code. And also, I think I need a folder for the image, for the logo that I have here. Just to have a nice UI. And the way that I execute these UI is by calling the framework Streamlit. It's a Python framework for a UI, and it's just to run the file. And hopefully that's not going to fail. It fails all the time. So when you do live code, that's the way it is. Okay, so at least the UI is there. So my question is going to be around the I keep forgetting the name of the the creature that I created. It's Roxodon. Okay, so then where is it again? Ooh. Okay, it's then the same machine. Sorry, went to different machines. So what is the Roxodon? And see if it works. Should be a miracle. It runs the first time. It's looking good. Yep, that's it. Nice, huh? So it says Roxodon is a creature that appears to be a keystone to special ecosystem, playing a vital role in maintaining the balance of the nature. It is described as a mysterious and elusive being that defies explanation. Blah 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 blah. So it knows Roxodon, which is a good sign. Now let's test the memory. So we can say, where does it lives? So it doesn't know that I'm talking about Roxodon unless it remembers. So it remembered the Roxodon appears to live in the rainforest, which is nice. If I ask ChatGPT about that, where does Roxodon lives? Yeah, doesn't know about anything. Right. Now let's do one last test, and hopefully it's going to work. I'm going to ask a random question about something else that has nothing to do with the book. For example, how do I cook a lamb? There's no information provided in the context about cooking a lamb. So it's not considered anything outside that PDF. So that's it. Questions? Let's see. Sometimes it fails. Okay. There is no information about cooking a lamb provided context.
Beautiful, beautiful. So it never went to LLM. It just solely relies on. That's exactly what I wanted to see, because it just uses vector database, but it uses LLM for interpreting your question. Wait a second. How it uses LLM exactly? So to interpret your question.
Once you query your vector database, you have the contextual data, right? And you can do some prompt engineering saying, okay, I want you to answer my question based solely on this context, right? And that's the question you send to the LLM. And then LLM will give this answer back.
So the whole context goes to LLM essentially, right?
Yes, yes. There's a very nice tool. Do you guys have time?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's Dennis, thanks a lot, man. Oh, peace.
Yep.
See you later.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there is one tool which is really nice. It's called LangSmith.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So it's basically a monitoring tool. Right. I already have an account here. Oh, it's breaking every time they try to log in. Okay, let me try the Safari then.
Interesting.
Don't know why.
I don't know. They're trying to put Google out, Chrome out of Google, right? Just make it open source or something. But that's
And OpenAI already told that they're gonna create their searcher. They were quick.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because here in US they just forced Google to leave Chrome because they have a monopoly. So OpenAI, like one day after, said, "Okay, we're gonna start our own searcher. You don't need to use Chrome anymore."
So I'm not sure if I have time to connect it now, but what I can do here, there is a way to load LangChain into your environment variables. So I need to add some stuff here on environment
so you can
variables that I
monitor
load.
it. So you can monitor it via LangSmith, essentially.
Yeah. So I do have a reg MIT, for example. I will just show. And then to restart. You just need to put that on your. If you use LangChain, if you use the LangChain framework, it will automatically connect to use these environment variables to connect to LangSmith. You don't need to do anything else. Just need to say trace and equal true, the endpoint, which is the LangChain, and you need to get a API key, of course, and then you need to give the project a name. So if I restart my application and do that over again, so if I refresh and say what is the Roxodon, it's quite nice because it breaks down the query and it shows all the steps. So if we go to, sorry, it's not there, it's here. So if you come here, I should have the reg MIT. So it creates the project for you. And then if you click on the project, there is my query over there, and it breaks down. You see, and that's basically how it navigates through. You see, so that was a question. At this point in time, there is no chat history, and that's the answer. This is the summary of that, but you can see step by step, right? So this is how it retrieves the documents, right? The step that is retrieving the document.
How much
so
do you pay per token there?
How much you pay?
Yeah.
Is that a question? It's free for one user. Okay, so you can play with that. But if you want to use for your company, then you need to pay the license. And then because you cannot add teams here, so it's just for one user, the free version. I'm not sure for how long it's going to be free. So and you can see this is the resulting query from the vector database. Okay, so that's how it retrieved, and that's a subquery how it retrieved. And then that's the stuffing part of that. So it basically render all these things here into a nice piece of text, and then it will call the prompt, right? So look at that. That's how the call is sent to the model. You have an input, a chat history and a context. So everything that's coming from the vector DB is there. So these are all the piece of text. You see, this is a chunk, right?
Mhm.
Okay, these are pretty much 1,000 characters.
And for example, Rodrigo, what if I want to reference, like for now we are bringing just the text that the model is creating for us, but what if I want to bring parts of PDFs as images whenever it retrieves something?
Yeah, then it's a bit more complicated. I haven't tried that yet, but I believe that some embedding models, I'm not sure if you need to split the image and put them in a different context in the database. I know that you can do some things like that because they reference the images in other places, but they need to use a reference. Otherwise, I don't know, it stores like a binary values. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I haven't tested that yet. I only test that for text.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Right.
So this is basically how the question is asked. The input for the chat, or they use a chat Llama. It could be GPT, OpenAI, and that's the system, which is the context itself, and what the human asked, and that's the AI response. So if I ask another question saying, what is the threat to it? Again, and by the way, it takes a while because it's running on my local model. If we run on usually on OpenAI, it's much faster. Okay. See, the other question is here now, the other retrieval. So we just close this. This is the. See, this is the second one. So if you look at the information we have, so this is the query, and then in stuff here. There is a context. Should have a history here somewhere. Where is it? So see again. Yeah, I have the chat history. Yeah, that's the chat history. Okay, so that's my first question. What's the Roxodon? And why it's not showing the other one? And that's the input that I've sent now. What's the track to it? So that's the question I've asked now, and that's the history. So this is I had only one question before, so that's what the previous question, not the input for this one. And it sends everything to the LLM to have some history as well, some memory.
Perfect. I don't know if it's asked too much, but are you sending the code for us?
I can send. I need to upload that to a Git repository. I will do that, and then I share that in the WhatsApp.
Okay, and it's basically the same one that we saw today, right?
Yeah, exactly. I will send exactly the one that I've done.
Perfect, because I'm a beginner, so I'm trying to do my best.
We all are.
Okay.
Rodrigo,
Okay.
can you so it wasn't extremely helpful. It was phenomenally helpful. Let me tell you
Thanks,
that.
man.
Yeah, no, this was very, very cool. And you essentially build it from A to Z. So yeah, Git repository is a great idea. Can we add it to the Git I created, or you're adding to your Git repo all those users again? Because I have Git repo with whole bunch of users already joined from MIT course.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, and you're in it too, I think.
The problem with the same repository is going to mix the code, right? So if you want to do, for example, a Git clone for you to use that within it shouldn't be the same repository.
Okay.
I'm going to
So
share the repository. It's going to be a public repository anyway, so anybody can have access to that. So it's not going to be
Perfect.
a private
So
one.
let's do
So
that. Whatever works.
I just put the link there for the Git, and then anybody can go and download.
Whatever works, man. Whatever works. Just to make sure that all users who are interested gain access to it. And I wish more people join because this was extremely helpful. But you can stop the recording.
I do have the same session tomorrow.
Mhm.
I think I'm recording this one anyway. I will
Yeah.
check after. I think it's being recorded.
Yeah, right away.
And I have another one tomorrow, so maybe I do a mix of both and upload that to you somewhere.
And recording, how are you gonna share the recording?
I can upload to YouTube or something like that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
If you could
able.
upload to YouTube, give us a link. You're gonna make it public, or you're gonna make it a public? It's helpful
I
for
make it public.
community.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, there's nothing confidential here. So that's
There's
why I
nothing
wanted to use
confidential.
something that's hypothetical scenario, so everybody else can use that. So yeah, I'm going to do the another one tomorrow, and then I do a mix of both. Get most of the questions, cut the errors, and then do
I'll
some
try my
This
production
is
there.
very
best.
cool technology, very cool and very important because it's one of the things you mentioned, right? Building that
Yeah.
knowledge expert system.
Thanks, Protein.
Bye. Take care. Expert system for your company domain knowledge, which is not an LLM. And by the way, a lot of companies are hesitant to put it in LLMs, right? So you can build your local environment.
Yeah. I think in terms of time and cost to adopt, RAG for me is kind of is the long hanging fruit, right? So you can see we've done that in less than an hour.
In 2 hours. Yeah, but you knew what
in
you're
2 hours,
doing.
but we've done a lot of other
You
things.
knew what you're doing. Come on, right? Like for people who doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. But there's something saying, for companies to invest on this, I think it's a very low investment and quite high return. Of course, this is a very simple scenario, right? Just one document, and we didn't face any hallucinations. The one that I've implemented for our knowledge base, I had to do a lot of adjustment and some prompt engineering. So the same way that we do that question and answer, restrict the question and answer to the context, I had to do for some other things as well.
Yeah.
But the models that are getting clever, they're getting clever anyway. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
One more question I have: if you have a mixed model, let's say, I mean the documents themselves, right? Let's say you have PDFs, you have HTMLs, you have TXTs, you have CSVs, you have all kinds of different formats. So how these heterogeneous formats can work together, right? Because you used specifically PDF loader, if I'm not mistaken, in your solution, right?
Yeah.
So if you have multiple sources, because you may have, like with the example you brought, right? You may have your Jira or your Wikipedia links or HTMLs or whatever. However, in fact, maybe you gain ability to just access that intranet and grab the content into your vector DB, just suck it into the vector DB. But then you may have PDFs, then you may have text files, which your meeting transcripts, for instance. So you pile all this together. How would you solve that?
Well, that's not easy, but for PDFs, I've used the LangChain document loader for PDFs. The one I've done for my previous company, I've used a Confluence loader. So it's connecting direct to Confluence, and you understand how it works.
They have connector. I see.
You may need to do like some different logic in terms of size of the chunks, whatever it is that works better for that specific context. But at the end of the day, it's just text, isn't it? So
and then once in a vector database, the difference between sources are already wiped out. So it's just one.
Yeah, it's abstracted.
It's abstracted. Wonderful. Very cool. Very cool. Very, very helpful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to gain access to the source code to play with it and play with it with my group also.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rodrigo, maybe next year, I don't know when you free up. I would
Thanks, Chris.
appreciate if you can just, yeah. Maybe I'll call you for a lecture, you know, if you don't mind.
Definitely. I'm happy with that. I just because Saturday is the end of the year for me a bit difficult, but maybe
Of
beginning
course,
of next
course.
year, I'm happy to do that.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Rodrigo,
Yeah, thanks guys for enjoying.
I'm planning to play with the code tonight or
Sure.
today, and I will be back to your next live session tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank
Okay.
you so
Thank
much.
you so
I'm
much.
sorry.
Thank you
I'm
for
proud of you
joining.
guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yuvati?
That's
That was
amazing.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. It
Thank
was a
you.
great
Thank you.
seminar. One question. If you have multiple PDFs
Yeah.
with Roxadol information, which one will it pick up, or it will pick up many?
Well, it depends of in this case, I'm using a folder inside my project, right? So any PDF that I put here inside this folder, it's going to read and consider that as part of the context, right? And that's where I'm going to query my I used to query my computers for a source for my queries, for my questions for the user.
So if I have 5 PDFs here for Roxadol, all of them will be considered while answering this question?
Sorry, I didn't get it. So if I have any other PDF, or if I don't have this Roxadon?
No. If I have 5 PDFs related
Yes.
to Roxadon in this folder, so while giving answer, all 5 of them will be considered, or the
Yes,
most?
all of them.
Okay.
And then it will have like it depends of how you phrase the question. It will get from one document or the other. It depends of the semantic. It depends of a lot of things. It depends of the logic that you use to identify the semantic value, and that logic is the embedding model. So different embedding models, they may give different answers. Okay, this is one of the things that if your solution is starting to hallucinate, there are a couple things that you can do to test if it's the model, or if it's the maybe the way that you're ingesting the data, right? So you can try different embedding models, different chat models, and different size of chunks and overlaps. These are usually the way that I've tried to control the accuracy of the response.
Okay. And one side question is, how much time you spent learning Llama, and in order to come up with, it seems like just 42 lines of code, right? On both the files, but there is a lot more that you need to know: the correct file,
Yeah.
correct library, what all functions it provides, features it provides. So
Correct.
how much time you spend, and how you finalize this is the one?
Well, I can say how much I did spend, but different people, they have different knowledge in different area. For me to come with something like this, knowing nothing about AI, it took me about 2-3 weeks. I've done a few courses, like I think Udemy is quite the nice place to go if you don't know, or even some YouTube videos. That's how I started to understand the concepts, because the most difficult thing is to understand the concepts. That's why I try to draw these diagrams here, because for me at the beginning it was difficult to understand how the application works together, right? So all these components work and how the framework work. For the framework itself, it's quite easy. You just need to go to the LangChain website. There's documentation there. You just need to read through, and then you know about it. All right. And then there's a lot of guides over there that show different scenarios as well. And then for everything else, I think that is practicing and maybe doing some courses and looking at some videos. But yeah, usually like in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, you can get up to speeds to do something like that. If you're familiar with programming as well, right? Because if you don't know Python as well, then it will take a bit longer. They need to learn Python.
Yeah. And one last question about the diagram. Could you just add some numbers on the flow that first is the ingestion, and then is the setting of the context. Framework is something third party, and that's the third step or fourth step. Just looking at this.
Yeah, for the steps.
When?
Okay. Yeah, I can. Yeah, usually, yeah, as if we follow our flow, we started with ingestion, right? So that will be the number one, and then that's going to basically provide you the vector database with the contextual data, and then everything else is part of the retrieval, right? So when the client run the question, and then you do the semantic search, and then you come back with the contextual data from the database, and then you do some prompt engineering. That's what we've done, like saying only consider this context, nothing else, and also consider chat history. And then you call like a chat model, like a GPT model or something like that, and then it will generate a response. So that you format, it will summarize everything for you, and then you respond to the client. That would be the flow. But yeah, I can add some numbers to make it a bit more readable.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's
next one. I think it's you, Juan.
Rodrigo, just first I wanted to say thank you. That was fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was an absolute pleasure to watch and kind of, because I have Ollama, and I've had Ollama for some time, but I haven't been able to actually use it like in that way, because I usually run it through the terminal as kind of like its own out of the box kind of AI agent. But the way you just used it is brand new to me, and to like what you connected it right into Streamlit, kind of made me go crazy. Like so my immediate thought was, is there a way to pipeline emails to go into where your PDF directory is, so that it can so it could immediately answer emails and run it through the company policies and so on, so that it can do the next phase of like operations, right? So definitely. I mean, I never used it. I didn't think of it in that way. So number one, I just want to thank you, and you did it so effortless. So, you know, I definitely see applications for it, even in my industry in law, where, you know, you can get very confidential information right away, and you have to run it through these local, I guess, these local operations. And so kind of like that was my next thing, which was, do you, like, is it always going to, is this the best way to do it when you're running it locally? And what happens sometimes, because I can't even find Ollama sometimes, right? Like I can't run it through. I don't know if you had the same problem. I couldn't find Ollama. I kept going through the debugging process. I just couldn't find it. So I had to run it through API keys. And like you said, like once you run it through API keys, some industries just do not want to have anything to do with that, right? Like they don't want anything outsourced. So is there any other kind of option that you see, or is this the main way? With using Ollama is what I mean, or Hugging Face.
Yeah, Ollama is just one way of doing that, right? So I'm pretty sure there are other solutions that you can run your models locally. I think Ollama is just a simplified version. It's abstracting all the complexity of running your model locally, right? So the only thing you have to do here, for those of you that don't know your Llama, you can install that, and then this is the command line that Juan was talking about, and then you can just download models from their own repository, and sometimes you can download even from Hugging Face. And for those of you that don't know Hugging Face is basically the GitHub of AI models, right? So people train things there and they expose and they make that available to other users as well. And it's quite nice because for me, it's very helpful. It has some benchmarking on models as well. So I try to get the leaderboard and the best one for that specific reason. And then the only thing you have to do is come here and pull say Llama pull and download the model name, and it will download it for you that automatically. For me, I already have a few of them installed. So if I do Llama list, you can see that I have a few of them. I only use 2 on the solution, but I have more than that. So I use this one that I download from Hugging Face. So hf.co is Hugging Face. And then all the others I've downloaded from their own repository, which you can find on their documentation anyway. So you just need to know which one is more suitable for your solution. There are models specific for embedding, for example, and models specifically for chat and for other things, for images and things like that.
That's good.
Okay. So then in terms of having different data for different content search, I would say, in this case, I gave the example of PDF, but for example, in my previous company, I've used the whole content of our Confluence website, for example, because our intellectual property or knowledge base was all in Confluence. And then if you go to LangChain, it has a lot of document loaders. So if you type LangChain document loaders, if you see that there is a lot of document loaders for different reasons, okay? So there's PDF, there's some from Microsoft Office, and there's some of them from the community as well. For example, the Confluence one that I've used is from the community. I don't remember how to. I don't know what happens from is crashing all the time in my machine. But anyway, if you go to to the LangChain website, you can see there's a lot of document loaders there. So in terms of emails, there may be something that you can download something from your email server and already do whatever you want with that information. Okay. Next one, I think it's you, Dave.
Yeah, this is great, Rodrigo. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that with 42 lines of code and the libraries and the frameworks that you can basically create a chatbot. it's kind of crazy. I wanted to ask, you were just mentioning Confluence. How long did it take you to ingest all of your Confluence into the vector database?
How long it took to develop, or how long it took to load the entire content into a vector database?
To load it, to actually ingest it. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I've in order to do that, you need to use the Confluence API, right? And then the way that you query Confluence is per space. And then I've loaded, I think, about 10 space with an average of 100 pages each, I would say. And it took me, I was using OpenAI, which is a different thing as well. So if you use their local model, it takes longer. I think when I've done a few tests when I use OpenAI, it took about 2 minutes. And then when I use my local machine, the same one here, it took about 10 minutes.
Okay. Wow. And that was the other thing I was going to ask. How do you find, basically what you showed us today is all running locally on your Mac, is that right?
Yeah, it's actually on my Windows machine at home, so I'm accessing remote.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
but I'm going to share. I forgot to say, but I'm going to share the code as well. It's on a public repository on GitHub. I'm going to put it on a WhatsApp chat for us
about resources on the local machine.
Yeah.
For something small like this, not too bad.
It's totally fine. I can run on my local machine here on my Mac, but I have an M1, which is not M1 Pro. I think is not the best machine for you to do this kind of things. And I think last time that I tested, it was taking like almost 10 minutes to load a couple of PDFs, and which is not great when you do something like this live, right? So this machine at home is a gaming machine. I bought it used. So I think you can find it pretty cheap if you want to have a lab at home. That's why I bought this one. It has a NVIDIA GPU. I think it's the RTX 4070, which is the good enough size for you to develop, at least not to run production, but you have your. But then there are different ways. I just wanted to show that it's possible to run locally, but I think almost all solutions that I've done so far, I've used OpenAI, and there's another one that I've done on Amazon that I use Amazon Bedrock, and it was the entire solution was on Amazon, and they used Bedrock for that as well.
I was going to ask about that, like if that's pretty affordable, using the cloud and using a server in the cloud and going that way around.
So far it is, okay? So for example, this knowledge base one that I had my previous company, we are using Bedrock, and I think we were paying like something like $15 a month because you're not training the model. Not sure when they're going to increase the price, because I think for me they're in that period that I give things for free, because the price is too low for like for example, for a GPT model where they spend like $40 million to train the model. I think charging like less than like a few cents for this kind of calls is underpriced.
Right.
So, but I think that the main, anyway, you can use that as long as you want, because I think to unplug from the public vendor and plug back to your internal infrastructure shouldn't be a huge amount of work.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Fabio?
Yes. Thanks, Rodrigo. Very, very helpful. I'm not a programmer, so this was extremely useful, because from now on, if anyone, a colleague or a partner, asks me more than half a day to build a RAG, I'll just kick him out of the room. So very useful. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask you a question on the diagram, because I probably, you've said it, but I needed to move out of the call for a couple of minutes, so probably I missed it. I just wanted to check with you if you can just explain me a little bit better the logic of the framework, the activity that is behind the framework, which is right in the middle of your diagram. It seems to me like a bridge, of course, between all the actors, but just wanted to be sure to understand the exactly the logic behind the framework itself, right?
Well, the logic behind the framework is whatever you orchestrate the steps, right? So how we're going to do your prompt engineering is basically this part of code here, where we use LangChain to do some prompt engineering and say that I want the prompt to be only based on the context of the data, to consider history, to retrieve data from the vector database, and send that to the chat model. So all these steps that I have here: querying the data, preparing the prompt, sending the prompt and the contextual data to BaseML. This is all orchestrated by the framework. Right? All these steps are orchestrated by the framework.
Perfect. So okay. So it's the orchestra itself. So it manages the activity and the timing of all these activities in order to have it run smoothly. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks. Great. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Absolutely.
Cool. Perfect. What?
Yes, yeah, sorry, Rodrigo, but I just
That's
wanted
fine.
to ask, thank you, again, thank you for before. I was just wanted to know if LLMs is the only type of AI that these agents, with this kind of overview can be utilized. In other words, can a different type of AI, like maybe text to generation, I mean, text to video generation, you know what I'm saying? And then I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
upload a particular content that I wanted to just focus on, whatever content I uploaded is only going to, go back to the vector database and use that vector database as a way to consistently keep the tone of what I'm uploading to it. Is that possible with, like,
It
have you
is.
used other? Okay.
No, I haven't yet. There's some things you can do. Well, most of the cases that I've seen, I was starting to do some tests with video transcription. So it basically is basically the same case here where getting text and splitting that. But you can use, for example, these instructions to on the other side, instead of giving a response to a user, to use another AI model to create a video or do some whatever you want to do. And then it's
Right.
just part of the orchestration itself, right? So instead of answering a question, you were producing a video or producing something
A
else.
product.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so it's just about realigning all the rest of the I guess the libraries, because I'm
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
coder either. So a lot of times what I do is I'll come up with the idea, and then I kind of do what everyone else. I ask AI for a bunch of code, and then I re-ask AI to refactor the code so that I could
Yeah.
try to, like, work with it. So Fabio said it, but I'm probably one of those guys. I enjoy building the AI agents, but it might take me 30 days. So, but
That's right.
I don't have
That's how you
all.
learn. That's how
Yeah,
you learn,
yeah. I appreciate
by
that,
doing.
Rodrigo. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah. And I
my
was gonna
pleasure.
ask you how many have you built? Is the number already, like, beyond, or is this something that you just kind of started? And what made you start getting into AI agents?
Curiosity at the beginning. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
as most of the things that I've done in IT, they started with a curiosity. I've done a couple courses and I think, okay, that's pretty nice, that's pretty cool and super. And as you can see, it's fairly easy to do. So I think that I try to evaluate things on the value that it can give versus the amount of time that I'm going to spend to learn and build. And this is, for me, is super valuable. And the learning curve is like quite not that steep. And the time to produce something that is quite useful is not that much as well. So I think it's a good investment of time. So that's how I started. And I've done like I think 2 or 3 of them, and I haven't done that many. Most of the things I've been doing is more like POCs and something like that. And because I'm not a developer as well, okay? So I work more like on the strategy definition and things like that on the consultancy side. But I like to go down to the details of the technology to have a better understanding and have be a bit more sure about what I'm saying, right? So that's why I usually go down to the details, because then I know what I'm talking about. And when I have the other people from my team working, um, I know what to tell them to do. That's the only reason.
Well, thank you.
Cool. That's right.
That,
My pleasure.
all right.
Stephen. Calvin?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, Rodrigo. I thought you were a developer, so that says a lot. A couple questions. You mentioned first that the M1 chip for Mac doesn't work well. I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit more what you meant by that. Just because I
It's
have an M1.
basically, yeah, it works. Okay. It has a GPU, but it's not as powerful as the latest ones. So it just takes longer. Okay. So, but you can still use that. That's fine.
Okay, gotcha. And then kind of going back to Fabio's question, I don't know if you can, I don't know if we have time. Maybe let me start there. I just wanted to do a quick recap because this
Sure.
was so good. So I was trying to kind of in my head, and maybe we could do it together as a group, the LangChain is really the framework that's handling the retrieval process of what we're doing for the most part. So when you talk about framework and what it's doing, it's, again, is it fair to say that that's just the retrieval aspect of what the task is here?
Yeah, it's doing a bit more than that, right? So you can see we use LangChain for the ingestion as well, right? So you can think about a LangChain as a pipeline, okay? And you define all the steps that are going to put on there to execute whatever you want to do. It's the retrieval, it is ingestion. So if you can see that even on an ingest code, we use LangChain here, right? Because it has a lot of this framework has a lot of helpers that abstract the complexity, for example, of splitting the text. It has a text splitter here. So why I'm going to develop everything, if I want to codify everything that I've done here, I couldn't do that in an hour. Actually, I probably would take a day, to go through the whole code. So it just on this sometimes Amazon Q is not that helpful. Okay, so if you look here, it helped us with loading the documents with the PDF document loader. So if you want to do that by hand, it's a lot of work. It helped us to split that document into smaller chunks with the logic of overlap and everything else. It helped us to connect with my local Ollama and get the embedding model and understand how the embedding models work, because they work differently from the chat models. So it works, it knows that it's an embedding model. So what it's going to do is to get my text and translate that into vectors. So you know exactly what model to use and how to do it, and how to connect to my files database and persist the data. So these are the steps.
Can I ask a quick question?
Right? Yeah.
So for the embedding model, that's not, even though you're saying like it's part of the pipeline, it's part of the LangChain pipeline, the embedding model is something separate from LangChain, similar to Ollama?
Yeah, everything is separated, right? So what it's doing here, it's implementing the logic to connect or to get that data and do something with that, right? So the PDF directed loader, for example, it doesn't know about the PDF, but I said, on this folder, on this PDF folder, I have some PDFs. You need to load that, right? And that's what it's doing. Then abstracting all the logic of getting the path where the PDFs are, going there, reading all of them, and translate that into text that then is going to be split. And the embedding is the same thing. I'm telling him I'm using this model here. Okay, the model is not here because I put on the environment. So I say, this is the embedding model that I'm going to use. So use this model, and this model is in Ollama. And it knows that I'm running Ollama locally. Otherwise, I need to specify the URL, etc. So, but if I don't specify anything, it says it's run locally on the default port. So you go there and search for that specific model I sent. And that's a lot of code that it is encapsulating there and also abstracting the complexity for us. That's why I got my code in 40 lines. Otherwise, it would be hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of lines.
Okay, and then one last question. The prompt engineer portion where we're specifying to Ollama that we just wanted to use the document for the response. If you don't do that, because it's a local model, it's still, I'm assuming it's pre-trained, so it would provide answers.
It's pre-trained. Yeah.
Got it.
It's pre-training on the whole internet. It's like GPT. It's pre-training on the whole internet. It's not going to search that real time. It's going to get all the data it was trained, and you give the answer based on that.
Gotcha. Okay. No, thank you. Everyone's been saying that. Thank you. This was so helpful, Rodrigo. Appreciate it.
I appreciate. I'm more than happy to do that, man. For me, it's great as well. Yeah, Yuvati?
Hey, one last question. Can you open that index.fiss and index.pkl file on Ollama? Yeah, just want to see.
You can't open that. That's generated. That's how it. This is like when you have like an MDF file for a SQL database, right? You can't read that. You need the application to read that. Okay, this was created at runtime. So for example, if I get my ingest, if I want to clean that, for example, you remember that in my code,
Yeah, clean part, yeah.
I have a clean argument here. So if I do ingest, Python ingest py, and I think it's clean. Is it clean?
Yeah.
What it's going to do, it's going to remove that folder. See, it's gone.
Okay.
Right? It's simple like that. It's a very rudimentary way
So
of
it
doing
has
that.
those chunks, the overlap, but it's kind of an intermediate. It's not human readable. I thought it would be some strings of numbers. Or
no, it's binary data. So it's the FAIS database format. So we don't know how to read that.
And is it big or for this size of PDF?
No, it's usually smaller than the source content, because the content is unstructured data. For example, if I just probably open it here, the PDF. Okay, I've got the wrong comment here. I need more information. So if I do the flags now, it has around 7 meg, something like that. So if I do the same for the Replica, it's 44, but you also have the index file, the I'm not sure if it's the one. See 27 as well. So you see, even both files are much smaller than the, because they store vectors, chunks of data there. Is not the entire document, right? So, and that's why, for example, when you look at a chat model like ChatGPT, I don't know, it has, I don't remember how the size, because I never downloaded, but I think it's 5 gig, some 10 gig, I don't know. And then the data that is based on is like hundreds of gigs on the internet. I think the first version, it was based on Wikipedia, which I think it was 40 gig of data, Wikipedia, something like that. And then I think the size of the model was 2-3 gig. Because it works on the probability. That's a different discussion, but that is a way that you works on the probability. So everything that is repeated, it's only saying that has more probability to happen as the next part of the text. That's it.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Sakit? I think you're on mute, sorry.
I thought I unmuted. Thank you. Awesome session.
Thanks, man.
Especially for someone like, I mean, I'm not a programmer, not a coder. I'm really new into this space of IT and all of that. So just watching all of this is really amazing for me. I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I'm going to try to keep them as short as possible. So, just looking at what you demonstrated, how do you control the accuracy of the responses for a model like this? Like, I'm talking about, specific use cases like in healthcare, where the response that the machine generates is kind of like a life or death situation. Yeah. So how do you know that your model is being accurate? How do you know if it's hallucinating? How do you prevent it from hallucinating?
Yeah, okay. I think the short answer is testing. Okay, and test, you can do that in many ways. Actually, I didn't put anything here, but one of the things that you can use, for example, in Python, using the test framework, and then you have some predefined questions where you know the answers, right? That's one way of controlling the quality of the outcomes and know if how what's the accuracy of your responses. But again, you need the more specified questions that you have, like more the question and answers and expected answers that you have, more quality control you have over your model, right? So then needs to be also relevant to the context that you were using. So for example, if you work on healthcare, you need to use all this question and answers from healthcare, then you know the model needs to respond. That's how they usually measure. You can even use another model to check if the answer makes sense, right? So I've seen some people that they use another chat model. After you retrieving the response, the summarized response from their model, they use another agent, another chat model just to ask if this makes sense or not. That's another way of doing that. But I think I haven't done anything that precise yet to say. But these are the few things that I've seen people doing, and I've done some of them as well with the Python test frameworks, where we put some questions that we know the answers, and then if the model doesn't answer the way that we want, we say, okay, it didn't pass the quality test.
Okay. So in a model like this, how much data can it ingest, and how does this affect real-time responses? Like, because just off the PDF that you used, it took like a couple of seconds to come up with a response. So, but if we're talking about like real time, like I want a response like now, does having more data increase that computation time, or?
It does. It does.
Okay.
That's how you need to work with the sizing, right? So when you probably, one of the things that you need to consider as part, probably we haven't, well, I think that kind of detail is encapsulated in the software development part of the course that we don't even talk about, but you need to do some sizing exercise to understand what kind of computation power you need to meet your needs, like performance and etc. That's normal as any other data-related project.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Alvin?
Yeah. I wanted to jump in, going back to, is it Sakti? Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good question. I know what came up yesterday in the course was, can't remember who asked, having your PDF in question answer format, does that help with the retrieval process? And so I think with that line of reasoning, I'm actually working on a project similar. Well, it'd be very helpful, Rodrigo, to have something like this built out on my end. I'm not there yet, but I'm drafting up policies. And so the policies are based on obviously like state legislation and regulation. So I'm having to look up a policy, get a sense of what it is, and look up a regulation, get a sense of what the reg is, and then draft the policy. And so going back to that question, I think part of what you can do also, along with maybe using other LLMs, is if your document has certain references, you can ask for that in the response to say, hey, this answer that you gave, is it from this kind of question answer piece? Is it from this kind of specific policy? And that way you can kind of go back and check and read it yourself. Because I don't know, I'm still of this, the thought or the mindset that with AI, it still involves kind of some aspect of human kind of oversight and just kind of reviewing. So having that ability just to be able to go back and just say, okay, let me check this reference, let me reread it, and let me see if it actually did kind of summarize and provide an answer that makes the most sense, I think might help with some of those situations where you're, again, writing policies or working in the medical field where you want to make sure that, the answer that you're getting, they're not hallucinations.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
This is actually what I implemented here. So you can see that there's a source saying where it's coming from. You can be a bit more specific. I have another project where we've even put like kind of an index into the chunks, so you can specify which page and part of the page that specific content is. So, but again, and this is actually a good thing to do, Calvin, because we can't rely 100% on these models at this point in time, because we know that this hallucination problem, I don't like the word hallucination, but anyway, it happens all the time. Even the most very well trained models, they still make mistakes. So in areas like healthcare, I'm starting to actually look at some products in healthcare, and that's very dangerous to have. So yeah, saying, okay, this is the problem. This the summary of how things that you can do, but to make sure, look at the source, and this is the official document, and then in this specific page, so you can look at there. And for me, it's like at this point in time, the main use cases are going to be more on improving the productivity of professionals, like helping them to get information faster. I think that's one way of doing that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what you're saying, and I'll go back to my example where I think when you're quote unquote just checking, whether you're checking for hallucination or you're just kind of reviewing what the LLM produces, it does give you an appreciation of kind of, like, to your point, how well it's cutting out several steps. But then you can build on that further, right? Where it may give a suggestion and you say, okay, I like that, but let me tweak it a little bit more. So it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, where this is really kind of technology that enhances what we can do. I don't think it replaces. So kind of the question about healthcare was so good, where, you know, I don't think it should be making decisions for us. So it's giving us information, and then we're using that information to make the best decision. From the process of kind of reviewing the information, I guess the whole idea is you have a way to kind of check to make sure it's valid.
Yeah, super minds.
Yeah.
Nice. Juan?
Yeah, just to kind of jump into that conversation, because now what I do with these AI agents, kind of, I'm glad he brought that up, is I actually say, even to myself, that it's more like an AI librarian. And what I mean by that is exactly kind of like what Rodrigo says, is that when it's going over my PDFs, I don't look at it as it's just coming up with its own thing. It's actually going through my files to retrieve the necessary information, like specific to what I'm asking it. So, you know, it's important to have it, you know, kind of the way Rodrigo had it, where you can kind of see it on the sidebar and you know the PDF that it's referring to. But if you're gonna run an entire kind of like office, for instance, you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rodrigo, like you can create that sidebar as a like a few different types of directories where the LLM can go into those things, like it's a file manager, right? It's like an updated file manager. Like I need, you know, you to recall or retrieve things from this directory and give me that, or I could ask you to go and retrieve something from a different directory, or combine the two and come up with like singular kind of stuff, but its source of like retrieval is only these specific directories. Am I like kind of saying it correctly?
Yeah.
So
That you're spot on. You know, it can be anything else. Not on directories. It can be like a website, your email inbox folder, whatever you want. You know, as far as you have a connector that I can understand, can load the data and interpret that and give you a reasonable answer. That it can be anything. It can be even be an image, and that's, I think, the main power of RAG at this point in time. For me, from my experience, is that a lot of companies and large organizations, they have like a huge amount of data. There was a study, I'm not sure if the data is valid, but they say that usually 95% of the company data is not used because they don't know how to use it. They don't have a way to use it, right? Some people say that it's even more, but anyway, I will stick to the official number. And then I think that's the one way that my previous company, we've done it. We started with Confluence, and then we start to use the same principle for our Google Drive, where you have like Word documents PowerPoint images, and then you just need to translate that into a vector database and say, for example, I've worked a lot with pre-sales, and then we had so many clients that sometimes it's difficult to remember where we use the specific technology for this specific industry, blah, blah, blah. Just type into the bot like this, and you're given an answer in seconds. Instead of for you, even using the Google search, it will take you a while because you need to open every document and read through all of them. And that's what happened with Google search now. And they say Google search is obsolete because it's really painful now to have like a rank of pages and need to open each one of them to understand if you're going to have your answer or not. Whether you go to ChatGPT and if it can give you or Gemini, which it can give you like the source of the data, you can go straight to the point that you want.
That's a very good point, Rodrigo. How Google searches have become obsolete. That's so, the way you put that was really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to add to piggyback on that, the way I see it, like even for a business like mine, for instance, like legal research is one thing, and then you get into that problem where privacy, right? Privacy gets into play, but decisions are based on those private information, right? So for me to get the most out of it, I need to be able to upload people's private information to like 2 different directories, right? Where I can actually ask the LLM to review both directories and come up with a singular answer, right? Like if I'm doing like, let's say a mock trial, and I'm just throwing like an example, if I'm trying to do a mock trial so I could kind of prepare for like future issues that my office may have to like deal with, it's important for me to get all those confidential details into an LLM so that I can properly, get myself ready and get my team ready to operate for like kind of like what the
definitely.
projections, right? What like the LLM is going to make some form of projections, right, on the next phase of like legal, whatever I give it, right? So it's going to at least give me that. And so I think that that's where it's, for me, like the use case is immediate. You can definitely use it, and it will definitely help out internal operations, because Microsoft, like the old school Outlook and Excel, and you can do a lot of stuff with that stuff, but it can't turn around and give the projections. I think like these LLMs can, or the sentiment. It just doesn't have that capability at all. So yeah, just to continue the conversation, yeah, these AI agents, I think that I think that's going to be the new way of operating in the future. Like if you capable of building different agents according to like use cases that you may need, as fast as Rodrigo just did it, like you're unstoppable. Like I don't see any way that a person who doesn't use AI could compete. It's just no way. So yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get on. I just got excited about that because I want to learn.
That's right.
I'm gonna be practicing AI agents tonight. I'll tell you that much right now.
Silly question though.
After we finish here, I'm going to share the code. You can play with that.
Silly question though, Juan, and maybe you can answer this too. Is RAG, is that considered an AI agent? The whole retrieval process, does that kind of fall under an AI agent, or is that? Because when I think of AI agents, I don't think of RAG, honestly, but I didn't know if I was kind of miscategorized. Yeah.
No, you can call an agent from RAG. RAG is basically just an approach that you do for a retrieval. It's just what it is, the Retrieval Augmented Generation. What you do to generate that response, then you can use agent, you can use prompt engineering. There is actually a marketplace for agents now. I think it's called agent.ai. Sometimes if you want to, I know that LangChain gives like a lot of helpers, but there are also agents that you can use to solve some problems. So if you have more complex problems, you can orchestrate your LangChain framework to call those agents. So if something happens, for example, you may want to use that for quality assurance, right? So you may want to say, okay, there is an agent that does a lot of tests in your prompt to see if on your response to see if it makes sense or not. So I know that the agents market is something that's growing now, and I've seen this marketplace called agents.ai, and then a lot of people are using that. So, but then again, these are like just components of your solution. It's not the entire solution.
Yeah, and RAG is, I kind of like to think of it as like taking a screenshot of your computer and having AI just kind of like figure it out, which I kind of want to do on an automated basis. You know, I want this, I want AI just see my screen and then get to work. If, right? Like I'm waiting for that day. So Rodrigo, hopefully that day comes soon. But yeah. I mean, Rodrigo said it all. I don't have nothing to say. Cal, he answered it.
Perfect. Any last question? We're all happy. Did it help to make it clear, make it more confused?
No, it was great. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you, Rodrigo. One last question. What did you use for the drawings? I think you've shared this with us before, but how did you?
Yeah, it's an application called Sketch Wall, if not wrong. Just say Sketch Wall. I can place that in the name in the chat and on that WhatsApp again. It's very
Thank you
limited.
so
Okay,
much.
so I think it's quite easy to use than other tools. That's why I use it, and looks nice. I like this sketchy diagrams, so that's why I use it. But it's very simple tool.
No, it looked great. I mean, that's not to compare, but it was easier for me to wrap my head around RAG based on the sketch that you provided in comparison to maybe what we were kind of privy to yesterday. Just being able to see how you kind of, and I, to Yuvadi's point about maybe having numbers, I get that, but even just kind of seeing the flow of how kind of the process worked was good. So that it did what it needed to do in terms of just sketching it out.
Right. Perfect. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's the end of it. And until the next one, see you in the next live.
No, Rodrigo, you gotta teach one more AI agent, course. But this time we bring you.
Oh, yeah.
I could bring you my broken version of an AI agent. I'm gonna try. It might be missing a couple of codes, but
That's how you start, man. That you learn by doing. That's how I've done it. So anybody can do that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I try to build these things, but yeah, you always come across something tricky.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. Great.
Rodrigo,
So
thank you.
Thanks everybody for
Thank
showing
you.
up, and then for the questions as well. It helped a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.